Hello, and welcome to Continuing the Conversation with Sadie. Today we are with the lovely Dave Wilson-Wynne. This podcast is where we explore the heart of care through emotionally intelligent dialogue and sector shifting stories. I'm your host, Sadie Ravening, and I'm really glad you're all here. Today we are stepping into a conversation that challenges the status quo and invites us to rethink what dementia support can truly look like. We're exploring the intersections of language, design, education, and human rights, and how these elements shape the lived experience of people with dementia. My guest, Dave Wilson-Wynne, hurrah, I got it right, dementia care specialist, consultant, and thought leader. With extensive experience across health and social care, Dave is recognised for challenging outdated models of dementia care and championing a more inclusive, person led approach. His work supports organisations to move beyond dementia friendly towards truly dementia inclusive practice, and we all love that. As a senior dementia consultant at the University of Stirling, Dave co developed and lectures the UK's first essential module on ageing, dementia, and design for undergraduate nursing and paramedic science students. Wow. In 2025, he co founded Innovar Dementia Consultancy, pioneering transformative solutions that integrate consultancy, education, research, and innovation to redefine what's possible in dementia support. Dave also advises organisations, governments, and research bodies on dementia policy and practice, and was the recipient of the Get This Outstanding Contribution to Dementia Care Award at the National Dementia Awards in London 2025. How lucky am I to have you here with me today? I am absolutely honoured to welcome Dave. It's wonderful to have you here. Let's go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sadie.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Right, let's get stuck in. Section one. Now, people who already listen know I like to start off with foundations and personal motivation. Where are we all coming from, basically? It's vital. And so, my first question is, Dave, what first drew you into dementia care and consultancy work?
So I did have a real good think about this, and
Mm,
I had to go back to I'll be honest, my childhood.
brilliant.
Although not affiliated with the church now, really, I was brought up in the Salvation Army, and I was around older people a lot. My house was always full of older people. Um, my mum and dad would often bring people that didn't have families and things to our house for lunch.
Yeah,
And just being involved in the church at the time
yeah,
was predominantly older people. So I've had this really even if it's something that I can't really explain, but I'm far more comfortable in an environment with older people than I am with people my own age. And
me
I can
too.
never explain it.
Yeah,
Um, but I think being brought up around the Salvation Army, and at that time, the Salvation Army placed great emphasis on caring for older people. Um, so things like what they refer to as their cameo clubs. So cameo stands for come and meet each other,
yeah.
which was predominantly older people, the Women's Guild, things like that. I was at them all. I was
Oh, wow.
encouraged to go along
The
to them
Women's
all. So,
Guild.
but yeah, and I just
Fantastic.
loved the Women's Guild. So for me, I think just being around, and although now my knowledge and my take on dementia has evolved significantly,
Yeah,
I was from a young age I've seen changes in how
yeah,
old people change. And
yes.
although it's not just older people affected by a dementia, I think that's really what drew me in.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I love that because I've had other guests that start with family, and that is where it
Hmm.
begins. That's
Yeah,
where you
yeah,
build your beliefs and your values.
absolutely.
And how supported you are as a kid is definitely going to shape who you are as an adult.
Yeah.
Which early experiences or values shape the way you approach dementia inclusion today?
So, very similar to a very good friend of mine who, when she did her nurse training, um, as a student nurse, walked into a ward and looked at what was happening and what was going on and how people were viewed,
Yeah,
and thought we can
good
do better
point.
than this.
Yeah,
And that I was pretty much exactly the same. So at the tender age of around about 17 and a half, 18, I left university after a year. I was doing an undergrad degree in music because I wanted to be a musician at that time. And when I came home, my mum had basically said to me, "Well, you need to find yourself a job."
yeah,
And she so happened to know, referred to as a matron at that time, but now what would be referred to as a care home manager, a friend of hers. And after going into this particular care home and having a bit of a chat with the manager, I got a job as a care assistant. Um, and this is no offence to the particular home at the time, but I looked around at what was going on, and again how people were viewed and aspects of practice, and I thought, no, we could do better than
yeah.
this.
I agree.
So it was that experience really, and then going into work in other care homes, looking around at all and thinking, no, and the value that older people and people living with a dementia can still bring to
Yeah,
us all.
brilliant. I love that. And you make me think of a book I read last year when I gave myself a bit of a reading challenge called Creative Care. Um, and it was about this lady in America who'd gone around different care home and had said to herself, I can do better than this. And she actually bought
Yeah.
um, amateur dramatics into care homes to build that connection with
Right.
people with
Yeah.
dementia. And it was a fascinating read. And they were trying to bring it over
Yeah.
into this country, um, following the similar principles that I think you're sort of heading towards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. And I think that's what good social care does. It changes things. Is there a moment or story that helped define your commitment to challenging outdated models of care?
There is absolutely. So I've kind of always been. You'll hear, I think, probably throughout this podcast, as it were, I'm viewed as a disruptor. So I'm viewed as someone that perhaps doesn't think the same as other people. Um, in the past, aspects of my practice has been viewed as I say, very controversial, highly disruptive. He winds people up. I've heard people say, and one of them was in regards to starting one of the UK's first choirs for people who are living with a dementia and
Brilliant.
their care
And
partners.
there's
Now, this was
evidence for
back in
that. Yeah.
absolutely, but back in 2013, when this started, this was well before the whole when the Alzheimer's Society brought it to the television, and forgive me, I can't remember the name of the actor, but she did a whole series on dementia and choirs and things like that. This was way before this, so people
Yeah.
had never put the word dementia and choir together before. So and so I did, and actually, the choir is now 13 years old, and continues to be hugely successful. But at the time when I first formed the choir, it was viewed as, I don't know how he's going to do this, and
Yeah.
this has never been done before.
Yeah.
It's and sadly, one of the comments that has always stuck with me is, how are you going to teach somebody living with dementia a new song? Because they can't remember anything.
And they're
And I
missing the
thought,
point.
hmm,
Yeah.
right, watch me, watch us
Well,
go.
yeah.
And that was it. And effectively, because what people were so obsessed with that time was sing-along groups. So let's all put on a CD of Vera Lynn, and let's all sing along. And I thought, no,
No,
I'm
that's
going to
not what
let
it's about.
people living with dementia choose what they want to sing and how they want to sing it. And yeah, it blew up. I mean, we our concerts were constantly sold out. We raised lots of money. We did performances here,
Fantastic.
there, and everywhere. And
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of really challenged this outdated model of, let's all just sit and sing, songs that were pertinent to the youth, or songs that were pertinent to me when I was in my 20s. I had them singing Adele, who they hadn't heard the song before, but they loved the song. So yeah, that was challenging, something quite significant, I think.
I just want to do a bit of a shout out actually for two
Hmm.
choirs that I know in, because I'm a care worker in Gloucestershire, so I'm working ground level. And two I'm very familiar with is Mind Song,
Hmm.
which is fantastic and has helped a lot of people I've worked with over the last 22 years. And not so dementia focused, but still a choir of value is Rock Choir, because
Hmm.
it's, I know it's not,
Absolutely.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
in relation to what you just said, and
Mhm.
it's massive and
Mhm.
totally brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah. The whole point of the choir was actually that after a period of time, they decided to completely rename themselves. So
Mm,
again, this bit of a shout out
okay,
to them, when they're listening, is what they decided to call themselves was Total Recall Memories Choir. And
right,
when I
okay,
asked them where's that come from, they had openly said because, and this was people who are living with a dementia that openly said, um, when I sing songs, memories come flooding
yeah,
back. So
yeah,
it
I
helps me
love that.
recall
And
specific
thank you
things.
for,
So
yeah,
yeah,
thank you for bringing that
that was
up.
that.
That's brilliant. Absolutely love that. And thank God for people like you that do think out the box, because that is actually your superpower, not a criticism. So more for the people who've, played around with that one. What principles guide you as your work continues to evolve across sectors and systems?
So yeah, I'm a huge believer in this constant evolving. We need to evolve, we need to adapt, we need to change. Um, and um, Catherine Booth, who was the wife of the founder of the Salvation Army, once famously said, um, in order to change the future, we must disrupt the present. Um, and that's a principle that I kind of live by. But for me, it's about this continued evolution of person centeredness to person led. And for me, guiding that whole person led ethos is I've kind of come up with myself through my own practice and through the voice of lived experience, what I refer to as the four C's. So the four C's are choice, control, consistency, and confidence. The
Yes.
first two, choice and control, purely has evolved from people living with a dementia telling me that's often the first two things that they feel are taken from them
Yeah.
or that they lose. And the consistency and the confidence is more about the system. So the how are we consistent in our approach, and what does inclusive consistency look like? And the second thing is confidence. Are we confident enough to advocate on behalf of a person who's living with a dementia? Are we confident in our own abilities, our skills, our knowledge?
Hmm.
So yeah, for me, the principles of the four C's guide me every day.
Love that. And that's exactly how I run my business model. And I know I've got confidence to provide a really good service because we
Yeah,
are very consistent. And the
yeah,
person with dementia knows who's coming in, on what day, on what time, and we don't
yeah,
change carers. It
absolutely.
works so well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but that means coming off the actual old model.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
challenging old ideas and doing it by the book, but in a different way.
Yeah.
100% brilliant. So
Yeah.
that's a really good way to start this conversation, because I think those foundations and personal motivations that you've got in you, installed in you, is solid and has made you what you are today. So that's really good to understand, and you've given us
Mhm.
so much already, and I've already just started talking. So section two, the emotional reality of dementia. So
Mhm.
this is all yours now, because you've got so much knowledge in this area. I'm going to start with, what emotional experiences do people living with dementia and their families often struggle to name or express?
I refer to it as unmet need. When we all have needs as human beings, whether they be physical or psychological needs, and that's well researched, it's well documented. Um, but often what we tend to find within practice are needs that go unrecognized because we don't think outside the box. Um, and the continued frustration for me is a person's presentation, not their behavior, but their presentation, everything being attributed to their dementia. I hate that. It's for me. the for people who are living with a dementia, when they become very emotional,
Yeah.
there's often this real need to quickly reinforce positivity. And I don't like that. That makes me uncomfortable. Um, again, it's kind of been viewed, I suppose, quite controversial in the past when I put up posts and things like that around LinkedIn, where I'll start this post by just a sentence that says, if a person living with a dementia wants to cry, let them cry, but just be with them in that moment. I don't like when I walk into a care environment and there's somebody who's, emotional about something, because we all get emotional as human beings. And they're upset, and somebody may ask, oh, what's wrong, David? Um, well, I really, really miss my mum. And it's very quickly redirected to, I know that must be difficult, but look, listen, we're all going to be to play bingo this afternoon, so, and I'll go and get you a cup of tea, and they walk away.
Yeah, I
Whereas,
agree. You've got to meet them where they're at.
yeah,
It's
it's
that
for
emotional
me,
intelligence.
to be so privileged for somebody to turn around
Mm.
and tell me that they miss someone,
Yeah.
or they're lost about something, or they're confused about something,
Yeah.
they're upset about something. That's a privilege to be
Yeah.
told that, and that's how I view it. And I would rather just be with the
Yeah.
person in that
Just be
moment.
with them.
So
Correct.
I tend to find that people living with a dementia will often struggle to perhaps sometimes really exhibit emotion, present with emotion, because it's often, what's the point? Because people just keep telling me I shouldn't be crying, or I shouldn't be getting upset. I've got so much to live for. I've got so much. My family are still here. As opposed to, no, if someone's upset, I'd rather be with them in
Yeah.
that moment.
And to say it's okay, you're human. You
Exactly.
know, you
Exactly.
this is all part of it, and I'm here with you, and just do what you've
Yeah.
got to do, and then
Yeah.
I'll meet you further on down the line in a different place. It's okay. Yeah, 100%. Um, how do you support organizations and practitioners in understanding these emotional landscapes without overwhelming them?
So for me, it's about being guided, always being guided by the individual. I, I, I get a very, again, quite uncomfortable when people will say, oh, Dave, you're an expert. You're an expert in this field. And I'll say,
Sorry, I said
no.
that
No,
because
but
I
it's
think you
no,
are.
but it's but and that's it's a huge honor to be classed as that. But for me, the true expert is the person who's experiencing it every single day of their life, every moment of their life. And for me, how I support it, whether it be individuals and organizations, practitioners, in understanding that, is by not having the person at the center, not person centeredness. It's about being person led, being guided by the person, and always viewing that person in front of you as a human being, not dementia. Um, because the for me, the basis of human spirit is connection, it's
Yeah,
care, and it's love. And often these three things we find really difficult. So talking very openly about how I want somebody to be meaningfully connected to me
yeah,
is fundamental to my daily existence.
yeah,
How I want to shape my care and how I want to lead my care, but also how do I give and receive love? Because whether we choose to admit it or not, we all need love in order to survive, and we get love from a whole series of different things.
yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, to me, you're an expert because of the way you manage it and go through it and guide people. And you've explained that so well.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
What helps people stay connected to identity, autonomy, that's a big one,
Mm.
and dignity as things change? And that's hard. Change, navigating people through change is hard for everybody.
Yeah, and it is, you've hit the nail on the head by saying we are so scared of the word change. And in particular, what people living with the dementia and their care partners, their wider support networks tell me is the fact that you can't control that change. We can't control it. So for me, part of it is viewing identity as something that does not remain static, because I don't like that. My identity constantly evolves.
Yeah,
As humans, we always change. And we have many identities. So yesterday, the past 3 days, I've been lecturing students. So they see me as Dave, the lecturer who has, you never see him wearing the same pair of glasses twice because I wear loads of different pairs of glasses.
We're
He's the
not
one that
plugging
uses,
a glass shop, by the way, are we?
no, absolutely no, definitely not, definitely not.
I've
Um,
had that
um,
before.
Dave's the person who uses humour to engage with us. Dave's the person who can't stand still when he's lecturing. But Dave's our teacher. But yet when I come home, I'm Dave the husband. I'm Dave the dad. Um, Saturday when I meet friends, I'm Dave the friend. And they don't all view me as the same person.
Yeah.
And yet sometimes we become so obsessed within the care sector of Dave who was an academic, and
Mm.
that's it. Dave was Dave
You've got a
spent
good
his
point there.
his whole life of,
We do get
or
lost in that. Yeah,
yeah, and we
very
don't view
lost.
identities as something that evolve all the time, and our ability to change our mind as human beings, because we change our mind all the time. Um, I think when it comes to autonomy, it's a huge part of person-led dementia care, and we uphold it by giving these two first C's of choice and control throughout the journey, not just up to a point, or not
Yeah.
just at particular areas, or we don't just allow someone the opportunity to make decisions as and when we choose. It's like the word empowerment. So people will say, I empower people living with dementia to do something. That still sends a signal to me of you're in control. So I will empower you, i.e., I will give you power in order to make a decision. Whereas my view is no, it's
Mm.
their life, it's their diagnosis. They should be in the driver's seat. So regardless of whether I agree with their decision or not, because let's face it, if you and I were to spend 24 hours together, there's going to be decisions that I make or that you make that the two of us are not going to agree on, because
Yeah.
that's what makes us human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I suppose the dignity aspect is, dignity is fundamental, because without dignity, what have we got? And I would want people to view dignity as something that, unless I can evidence it, and unless that person can truly say that they live a life where their dignity is upheld, there is something categorically wrong, and we should be seeking to change that, as soon as we can. So, and that could be through challenging poor practice, or when we see decisions being made on behalf of someone who's living with a dementia, or lived experience not being included in development, education, or design is another huge thing. Because if somebody releases a new training course, or if somebody builds a new care home, and they cannot evidence to me that people living with a dementia have not been part of it, there is no autonomy in that.
Brilliant.
There
Love
is
that.
there is no there is no identity in that.
Mm.
Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's it for me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's absolutely brilliant. Amazing. Honestly, really, really good. Love that. What helps people stay connected to identity um, when they go through big changes, like you've just said, if they are surrounded by people who aren't as supportive as you are?
Mm. So I think, to stay connected to an identity is, again, about this sort of going back to that point of
Yeah. I'm
my
pushing a bit more
identity.
now.
No, but absolutely, my identity will not be the same all the time, and it's something that, like I say, should never remain static. If I'm surrounded by people who don't support me, this is where, it's up to me as an individual to try, and whether that be through my presentation, whether that be through my words, whether that be through my actions, um, to instigate change. So I remember being in a situation a number of years ago whereby I implemented playlists, so personalized playlists in a acute ward environment.
Yeah.
And for a number of my colleagues at the time, they were like, "Oh, this is very different. This will be interesting." What a lot of them could not get used to was seeing patients going around the ward environment, singing, dancing with each other. some being emotional because they're listening to a song that's brought about around a memory, which then I would sit and discuss that with them and chat with them, and they would start talking about their wedding, or they'd talk about a funeral or whatever. That all forms part of who that person is. It's their
So it's being in
identity.
the moment.
Um,
Yeah.
exactly that. Exactly that.
That's great. I did push you a little bit more there because
Nope,
I just
not
thought
at
you
all.
were tapping into something that we all need to hear. And also, as well as the patient, I think it's important for the person who's looking after the patient. If they're in the wrong role, they need to, or they see something that they know isn't right, they need
Mm,
to do something about it. Because
correct.
I think that's, it's
Absolutely.
double-edged sword there.
Yeah. Yeah.
What message do you most want carers, practitioners, or leaders to hear when they feel stuck, isolated, or unsure? And that's leading
Um,
from where we were from with the
yeah.
questions, because it's important because people are going to listen to you, Dave, because you're so experienced.
I think saying you're not alone. Um, and being disruptive brings about change. I had a person living with a dementia say to me a number of years ago, Dave, what would you do if you could walk your 8-year-old self to school,
Yep.
hand in hand? What would you say to yourself at eight
Mm,
years old?
I love those
Um,
questions.
and for me, I've been stuck and isolated and unsure numerous times throughout the course of my career. Um, and what's helped me is knowing in my heart and in my mind that I'm doing the right thing. And the only reason I've known that is because people living with a dementia are telling me I'm doing the right thing. Um, and carers and practitioners. For care partners, it's always remembering that the person is still there, is as difficult. And I've got a lot of professional experience, but a lot of personal experience, family members grandparents who I've had to support through their dementia, of regardless of how advanced a person becomes in their dementia, they are still in there. It's about how we meaningfully connect that person to get them out, which then in itself upholds dignity.
Yeah. I think something else I just want to bring in here, which you have highlighted and brought to the fore, but I just want to clarify that I'm on the right track, is integrity. Always going back to your inner why you're doing it, why are you here? And then
Yeah.
a lot of things change, but that's what I call your true north. That's where you
Yes.
know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I want more people to believe in themselves in that moment, in that mindset with the approach that you're talking about, because that not only brings up what I think is high quality care, it also means people with dementia are going to be more met where they're at as opposed to where people want them to be. Do you agree with that?
Without a doubt, and I think it's like you've said, when you meet people where they're at, you automatically shift this historical viewpoint of it's only what's happened in my past that should um, inform the care I receive now. And it's not about that. It's about I'm still a person who wants to make decisions and I'm able to change my mind.
Yeah,
Um, there will be times I still get a lot of criticism. A post that I shared on LinkedIn, kind of in between Christmas and New Year, around fakery in the care environment. Um, that kind of went a bit viral, and a lot of people didn't agree with what I was saying. But for me, I couldn't sometimes really care less whether people don't agree with what I'm saying. It's about creating the conversation. It's about
correct.
instigating the debate.
Yeah,
Because as long as we're talking about it, I'm happy.
I was
It's
just going to
when
say that. Yeah,
it's when we don't talk about, and
yeah,
today this is a fine example of it,
yeah.
of whereby I'm being given this amazing opportunity by you to kind of say, you know what, Dave, tell me what you feel, tell me how you think, tell me what. Um, it's
Thank
a
you.
it's a really privileged position to be in, because the amount of
Thank you.
people that would openly turn around and say that, and again, this whole thing of the evolution of person centeredness to person led makes people feel uncomfortable. And for me, if it makes people feel uncomfortable, that tells me something.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And thank you. I mean, I feel very privileged too. So
Oh, not
we've
at
got
all.
a ongoing gratitude thing going on here.
Absolutely.
Um, I'm just going to go into section 3. So we're going to move on
Hmm.
to something I'm very passionate about and always have been. And again, it's that, you know, that inner true north and your foundations and beliefs and values is community, but also language and changing narrative. So, with that in mind, what are some of the most unhelpful narratives or misconceptions you see around dementia today?
So, I have to say again about the person-centeredness is the be all and end all. It's not. We need to evolve because we can't continue to talk about something that was developed decades ago and remain
No.
static. We
Yeah,
just because we've not done it with, for example, nursing practice. So when I lecture the
very good.
nursing
Yeah,
students, there are so many things within nursing practice that would now just be classed as no, you would not do that because it doesn't uphold dignity, it doesn't uphold rights, it doesn't uphold X, Y, and Z. When I talk to friends, my own mum, who's worked within the NHS now for well, coming up
yeah,
for 40 years, I'll say to her, think about things you've done in the past, which was just part of everyday practice, which now you just wouldn't do. Um, and yet, why is it within dementia care a model that came about in kind of the late 80s, early 90s, we've just remained there. That's it. Every policy, every document, every training, every piece of education centres around, funnily enough, person centeredness. But are we now in a position, and I feel we are, whereby if we're talking about a human rights based approach to dementia care, that cannot be the person cannot be at the center. They cannot be at the center if we're going to talk about a human rights based approach to care. They need to be in charge. They need to be leading. They need to be telling us and guiding us all. Um,
yeah,
there's this kind of unhelpful narrative of, when people just say David has dementia, that's it. There's not there's no bigger room because what does that actually mean? So if somebody just says to me David has dementia, we place me in a box where it's one diagnosis, one symptom, that's it. And it's again this unhelpful narrative of because dementia is just about memory loss, and it's not. It's actually everything else. Um, whereas I some people pick up on it quite quickly when I never say just dementia. I'll always say a dementia, and just that shift of putting that one letter in front of dementia helps us remember that dementia is unique to each person. No two people are the same, but we should always ensure that people who are living with a dementia should receive a specific and an accurate diagnosis. You know, two people even living with Alzheimer's disease are very different.
different.
But
Correct.
um, for me to provide really meaningful care
Mm,
and the highest quality of care I can, I need to know more than David
mm,
lives with dementia. I need to know that David actually lives with Lewy body dementia.
which
So
is very
I can
different
then,
to Alzheimer's. Yeah.
exactly.
And
So
I love that.
even that shift off from
Yeah,
dementia to a dementia, hopefully the next question somebody would ask would be, what type of dementia do you live
yeah,
with? And then that helps me inform what my
yeah,
what my intervention is going forward.
yeah. And more importantly, what is it like for David with dementia? How is
Exactly.
he coping?
Yep.
How is he managing with it? But also to add to what you just said, I'm Professional Carers Network lead for Gloucestershire, so I'm registered with the Professional Carers Network. We're all self-employed carers. And I was really, really pleased last week. We actually had GPs jumping on our, you know, Facebook pages where we support each
Brilliant.
other, asking
Yep.
us, how do we think dementia should be managed within the community? And they were asking us. And I was absolutely over the moon with that, Dave, because we do exactly what you said. We provide bespoke care plans for that person in agreement with the family because we do it
Yeah.
all properly and, you know, by the book because we're registered. And I found that really, really refreshing that they actually asked us that, they took the time. And when we replied, they were very responsive straight
Mhm.
away. And I thought that's what we need to do. There's no collaboration anymore. And that was
Yep.
the first positive
Yeah.
sign I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to add that because I thought if anyone's listening and they're worried about dementia or they've got a loved one they're looking after, things are moving silently in the background and people are listening and they are responding. It's not completely dead out there.
No,
Bit of hope.
absolutely, and yeah, definitely. And I think my kind of challenge, I suppose, would be right now if there's if to you who is listening to this, if you are a frontline practitioner and you go into work tomorrow and you open a care plan and it says Sadie lives with dementia, challenge it. I need to know what type of dementia Sadie lives with. And that in itself can completely change culture and absolutely will change the care interventions and the care practice that that individual person will receive straight away.
Brilliant. How does shifting our language individually and organisationally change the lived experience for people with dementia? You have touched on it a bit, but we're just going to go a
Mhm.
little bit further.
I think all your questions have been phenomenal, but this
Thank you.
question is right up the top because
Oh, thank you.
what I'm known for is challenging language, because um, language directly influences practice. It shapes how we view people who are living with the dementia, and it shapes care culture. And I've seen it so many times that even just that point we were saying of, for example, um, we still hear, maybe not so much in this country, but I still do see it of people saying, "Would you like to come and visit our memory care unit?" And I'll say, "Memory care unit, what's that?" Well, it's our dementia unit. And there's a huge problem there because dementia is just not memory.
No,
So when we box it into just memory,
good point.
there's
Really
there's an
good
issue.
point.
Um,
I love that.
so I can often tell a lot about a practitioner or an individual person and where their knowledge is at by just listening to the words that they use. And I always loved somebody saying to me, observation is the most powerful tool at your disposal.
Yeah,
So and observation is about listening, um or not just viewing things with your eyes, but viewing it with your ears, as crazy as that sounds. But because, for example, if we take the term aggressive, right? But I talked to the nursing students and paramedic science students about this yesterday. The minute that somebody who's living with a dementia is labelled as aggressive, that follows them right throughout the context of their journey. And that has lasting consequences for that individual. And yet, we've never once exhausted or looked at the point of why are they presenting like that? There
yeah,
is always a reason why people living with the dementia will say what they say or do what they do. It's
yeah,
up to us to find out.
yeah,
But all it takes is for me to have a clenched fist and bang it on a table, and I'm viewed as aggressive. But that could be the difference between me getting into a care home or not. That could be the difference between me being medicated or not. So subtle words have huge impact, and we find that it only takes one person in a team to start using poor terminology, and it spreads. It's like a malignancy. It's
yeah. To
spread right
toxicity in
throughout
the
a culture.
culture. Yeah, I
Absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely love that answer. Oh my God. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to have you here. You really do know what you're on about. And I know you do because I've been in the industry 22 years, so I'm feeling and I'm living this and I'm understanding every word because I've seen so much and done so much, and so have a lot of people I know. From your work across the communities and systems, what have you learned about what truly supports people to live well?
I think, to be honest, I'm gonna kind of turn the question round a little bit, and that is by saying I've learned what truly supports people to live well is the recognition that not everybody can. And
Okay.
I'm going to tease that out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I've spent a lot of time throughout my career, um, sitting alongside, sometimes in really lovely, quiet moments, with people who are living with a dementia that will say to me, I wish people would stop saying to me that I need to live well and that I must live well. Because you know what, Dave, for me, it's really difficult. I don't have family. Nobody in this care home knows me.
Mm.
I'm surrounded by strangers. I don't have good
That's a
finances.
big
I live
thing.
in a rural
Yeah,
community. I'm from an underrepresented community. All these things.
100%. That
So
lack
I
of
just
understanding.
sometimes, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think for
I hear
me,
that all the time.
where I've learned about what truly supports people to live well is the recognition of not everyone can. And that's not a bad thing. It's a realistic thing. And people living with a dementia want us to be realistic, honest, and transparent, not this forced ethos of you must live well. Um, a little shout out to a wonderful man called Danny, who is one of our guest lecturers, who lives with a dementia and guest lectures our students at the university. And he said yesterday, that when it comes to his diagnosis, um, not every day is a good day. And actually just recognizing that in itself is a huge thing for him as an individual. Yes, he tries to remain positive, and Danny uses a lot of humor in what he does, and how he talks about his diagnosis. But there are also points that Danny openly said that he still remembers very vividly the day in which the consultant psychiatrist on Teams during COVID shared pictures of his brain and said, that bit's dead, that bit's dead, that bit's dead. And
Oh, that's a bit rough, isn't
Danny
it?
had openly said it was a life-changing moment. And I knew my life would never be the same again. And even just hearing that direct from him
Mm.
helps me understand that, so for this guy, there are days that he wakes up and he says, yeah, this is great and it's marvelous. But actually, part of it's just about being human, because every single one of us wake up some days and go, I just really can't be bothered today. I'm not in the best of moods today, or I feel a bit low today, I feel a bit down today. But yet, for people living with a dementia, we often forget that actually a diagnosis of a dementia is a devastating,
It's a
life changing
shock.
diagnosis.
Yeah. And they're still
So
living
even
with
just,
it
yeah,
years
and
after. Yeah,
recognizing that,
that's a really
recognizing
good
that
point.
is
Yeah,
is is essential.
brilliant. Yeah, and that's useful to everybody. Everybody,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
brilliant. And I love the way you turn that question around. Genius. It's your superpower. Honestly, never
Yeah.
lose it. Keep being you. For those wanting to create more dementia inclusive environments, where's the most meaningful place to begin?
By doing exactly what you've done, and that is by not saying dementia friendly. Because a bit like person centeredness, dementia friendly, I feel, is just a concept that just rolls off the tongue, but it means different things to different people. I walk into environments all the time where they'll say, come and visit our dementia friendly ward. And I'll say, where? Where is it? Show me. Um, where to begin is that you need to include people living with a dementia in any development of work that you're doing, whether that be building a new care home, whether that be changing the colour of a wall, whether that be creating a new training resource. Um, Utilize evidence-based research. There is phenomenal research out there, and again, a wee shout out to the amazing work of the Dementia Services Development Centre in the University of Stirling, which back in the day was regarded as, again, very controversial,
Mm,
but very forward thinking in
yeah,
terms of our environment is the biggest non-pharmacological intervention we can provide to help
correct.
reduce
Yeah,
symptoms.
yeah,
And yet it's the one thing that we just do not consider in terms of well-being, of what does that environment look like. And I suppose I would say that, as well as all of that, sometimes it just begins with walking into an environment or reading a document or watching a program and seeing it from the eyes of a person living with a dementia, not your own eyes, but their eyes. What what does this tell me? What does this look like?
yeah.
Because if it causes elements of what could be anxiety or fear, or um, for you as a person who's not living with a dementia, you can at least probably magnify that by 1,000 as to what it must be like to experience it when you are living with a diagnosis of a dementia.
And also, to back up everything you've just said, there is a brilliant study that was done on a group of nuns. I don't
Hmm.
know if you read about that, but that
Hmm.
was phenomenal. And that's all about routine, the power of habit,
Mhm.
and what they discovered. I'm not going to talk about it now because we haven't got the time, but just go and read it because it backs up everything you just said. So true. We're going to move on to section 4 now, which is about education and future possibilities, looking ahead, innovation. What inspired you to co-found Innovare Dementia Consultancy in 2025?
I would probably say that what inspired me was the fact that that there needs to be change, and it's not creating change for the sake of creating change. Part of it is around where there is this huge disjointedness between consultancy, education, research, and innovation. So it's I still hear people say to me, "How do we bridge the gap between research and tangible practice?" And there are amazing organizations out there that do that quite well. But how do I
Mm,
get that into frontline practitioners who right now, whilst you and I are talking, are working within a care home or a domiciliary care provider or
yeah,
something where they do not get access to research. They do not get access to the latest best practice. They don't know what the latest up to date terminology is because nobody's told them, or they're not exposed to it. So I think the way in which I kind of view it is part of the reason as to why Innovate Dementia Consultancy or the consultancy has started is because for me it's about consultancy that challenges, not comforts.
yeah,
And that might make people feel uncomfortable because when we talk about dementia care, there should always be comfort. But when I look at what traditional consultancy will often offer, it's all to do with, audits and reports and there's your recommendations and then they leave. Um, Innovare doesn't exist to fix services. Innovare exists to um, reframe thinking, and out of that reframed thinking, we will then see changes in language and moving from this person-centeredness to person-led. It interrogates power, control, and risk, which are three things that we see sadly a lot within dementia care of who actually holds the power, who is in control, and how we view risk, because it's a huge thing. It's and I suppose to kind of finish that point, it's about it's not transactional. My consultancy is not transactional. It's transformational. I
yeah.
want people to actually tangibly have something that they can go and know that I can make a real difference to someone's life. It's not just improving compliance because I hate that. It's shifting philosophy.
I'm just going to add a quick spin on something you've just
Mm,
said because I was thinking about how hard it is for, especially self-employed carers who don't have access to
yeah.
information easily. Um, Last year, I downloaded something called BorrowBox from the local library, and so I did a lot of audio books. But I got a lot of access to things like Power of Habit, Atomic Habits, all these books that have helped develop me as an individual, as a
Mhm.
practitioner, as a domiciliary care worker, as a podcaster. And I just wanted to get that out there because it's free. It uses your local library, so that's community based. So if you use it, you won't lose it. And you know, if you ever write a paper or whatever and you put it on Spotify or BorrowBox or whatever, it gives others a fantastic chance to listen to your work and develop their practice. So I see it as a bridge to what you're
Absolutely.
saying because we need more
Yep.
people like you to guide us and tell us what's worth. Time is limited for everybody, so your words would just cut straight to the point and we'd be there. So I'd love that if you ever do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What impact do you hope the aging, dementia, and design module at Stirling will have on the next generation of practitioners?
So I want our future practitioners to be, and I say it to them all the time, beacons of light, um, being out there, doing their thing, but being confident and competent in their own ability, knowing that what they're doing is right, knowing that what they're doing in every ounce of their practice is being led by people who are living with a dementia. Um, knowledge that will directly influence culture, the cultures and the teams that they'll work, um, and ensuring that rights-based care, and above all, have that tangible impact on someone's life. So, two students came to me yesterday and said, um, "I very rarely take notes in your session."
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, okay, why?" And they said, "Because it's so practical. It's too practical for me to take notes." And I've said, "So explain that." And they said,
Yeah.
"Well, um, if you were to stand and tell us about all the different types of dementia, the pathology of dementia, the regions of the brain, all this kind of jazz, which we do, but they said that's where I would feel compelled to sit and take notes and jot loads of stuff down." And I said, "Okay." Whereas they said, "I'm too intrigued that I put my pen down, and when you do a role play with another student about good communication versus poor communication, I'm too involved in what I physically see." And I said, "And do you think that has a greater impact?" And they said, "Well, yeah, because I'll always remember it, because you've made me feel something." Um, and I can stand and put up a slide of a brain and tell people, this person who's living with Alzheimer's disease, this is how Alzheimer's disease affects the brain. But yet, what I want my nurses and my students who graduate from Stirling University to go out there and actually be able to sit and talk to people and to have a connection, so that when that nurse gets up and walks away, that person living with dementia looks at them and says, "There's a good person. There's a person who's made me feel something that I've not felt in such a long time, in a world that can be very scary, and in a world that can be very
Yeah.
unsure."
I absolutely love that. Sign me up. I'm in.
There you go. You're welcome anytime. Anytime.
I'll be there in a heartbeat. I absolutely love that. Yeah, there you go. What's emerging for you? What conversations, projects, or possibilities are calling you forward?
So I probably should start with just saying it's me continuing to be me.
Mm.
I had a call just a couple of days ago where the chap that I was on the call with had openly turned around and said, "You're not what I expected you to be." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And they said, "Well, because you work within academia, and your qualifications and all this kind of jazz, but actually you're just you just seem to be very normal." And I said, "Well, yeah, and
You're a human being.
that's what I would hope."
Yeah.
I'm not your kind of stereotypical, and I don't even view myself as an academic. First and foremost, I view myself as I'm very proud of the fact that I started my journey as a care assistant in a care home. And if I lost everything tomorrow, I would have no qualms of walking into a care home or walking up to a domiciliary care provider and saying, "Can I get a job as a care assistant, please?" Because you know what? Nothing will ever take me away from the impact that that job has always had and would continue to have. Um, the emerging This evolution of person-centeredness to this rights-based approach is something that I will continue to talk about. Um, Part of it, I might not necessarily see person-led approaches to care come to full fruition in my lifetime, but I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old son, and I'd love them one day to be able to turn around and say, "You know what? See this person-led thing that everybody keeps going on about? 30, 40 years ago, my dad was talking about it and he was viewed as disruptive. My dad was viewed as controversial. And yet here we all are now talking about this." Um, the one thing that I'm developing at the moment is this kind of person-led framework, and hopefully out of that then a design blueprint. Right now, there is nothing legislative that kind of forces people when they're building care environments to include dementia design. It's classed as a nice thing that they can do, but there is nothing legislative. I kind of want to make it my life's mission now to introduce some form of regulatory framework or some form of legislative piece of work in and around, if you're designing a service, it must include, one, people who are living with the dementia,
Yeah.
part of that, but two, let's start designing environments that enable people, not disable people. Let's stop building environments that are more focused on the relative as opposed to the person who's actually living in it. All these kind of things. And very lastly, a huge shout out to an organisation called Rare Dementia Support based at University College London, and they right now are developing a postgraduate certificate in support and rehabilitation, but looking to provide very specific education into rarer dementias, and that's something that is a
Unique.
huge passion of mine,
Yeah.
because there are so many people out there who are living with rarer dementias that do not get the same level of recognition, compared to people who are living with your more kind of common dementias, as it were, of Alzheimer's disease
Yeah.
and vascular dementia,
Yeah.
etc.
Let's get it
People
all out
with
there.
Yeah, people
Get it all
with
out there.
posterior cortical atrophy, people with familial Alzheimer's disease,
Yeah.
people with young onset dementia, all these individuals, they all matter. And over this next kind of year or so, I've been really fortunate enough to be asked to support in some of the work that they're doing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that'll keep me motivated.
Brilliant. We're going to end it there. I just need to calm down. I'm absolutely on fire after this conversation. I can feel my nervous system just going overtime because that was just phenomenal. And I feel like I've just read a encyclopedia.
No.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Continuing the Conversation with Sadie. Today's conversation with Dave Wilson-Wynne reminded us that dementia care is not just a service, it's a human rights issue, a design challenge, and a cultural shift. We explored the emotional realities of dementia, the power of language, and the importance of moving beyond friendly towards truly inclusive practice. Dave's work across education, consultancy, policy, and innovation shows what becomes possible when we centre dignity, autonomy, and belonging. As we close, I invite you to reflect. Where might you bring more inclusion into your practice this week? And what small shift in language or design could open up a new possibility for someone living with dementia? Thank you for listening. This has been continuing the conversation with Sadie. I'm still on one, sorry. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself, of each other, and keep reflecting, growing, and caring. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sadie.